Well, hi, everybody. Good to be back with all of you. I have a very special guest today, and those of you who are listening to this on the audio, light on, light through, you won't be able to see that he has like a little moniker below his name, Truth to Power. His more usual name is Brooklyn Demme. And I have to say, I always have a good feeling about Brooklyn because my father was born in Brooklyn. And about the only thing my father and I disagreed on was he was a devoted fan of the Brooklyn Dodgers, even after they left Brooklyn. But I've always been a fan of the Yankees, and that's because I guess I was, brought up and born, for that matter, in the Bronx. But the reason why I've asked Brooklyn to drop by for this interview is I saw a movie a couple of weeks ago, One Battle After Another, which actually I first heard about in an interview that Frank LeBuono did with Brooklyn and Ashley Dawson about their movie, That Kid. And I enjoyed that interview, and I was especially interested in seeing One Battle After Another. I mean, there are a whole bunch of reasons. It's based on a Thomas Pynchon novel, but it's always good, I think, to know someone who is playing a significant part or even a small part in a movie. And I was very interested in what Brooklyn had to say about that movie. I saw that movie about 2 weeks ago. If it doesn't win an Academy Award for Best Motion Picture of this year, I don't know why it wouldn't. And what I think struck me most about the movie and struck a lot of people, and this will be my first question to Demi, is how appropriate that movie is to what's going on in the United States and our world right now. So the interview on the Being Frank podcast that Frank LeBuono did, that took place in April. Trump was already president. He was already doing some very bad things, trying to starve out all kinds of artistic ventures. And although art is extremely important, in retrospect, these like 6 months or so after that, that's by no means the worst that Trump and his minions have been doing. They're basically arresting Americans, sometimes even getting them out of the country without even giving them a hearing, sometimes in courts. And they are pepper spraying reverends in the face, one reverend in particular that was caught on camera. I mean, if I just woke up and saw this, I would think I was having a nightmare, or somehow it was a time travel story, and I somehow got back to Nazi Germany in the early 1930s. So I wonder how you feel about this, Brooklyn. Seeing you played a very minor part in this movie, but nonetheless, you've seen this movie from the inside out, and seeing how tragically predictive it is about what's going on in our country today.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me on, Paul. And yeah, let's get into the heart of this thing. I share your impression from top to bottom in general. When I first read the script, I got a call from the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, out of nowhere. I didn't recognize the number on the phone. He had a very close friendship with my dad, Jonathan. Um, Very close friendship over the years. He actually dedicated one of his not most recent Before One Battle, but two films before that, Phantom Thread. He dedicated to my dad, which I shared just to honor their relationship. And you know, uh, Paul, I guess, was sort of broadly aware of some of the film work that I do in the community, which I guess many would describe as activism. And for that reason, he, I guess, thought I would be a good fit for a member of the French 75 cohort, um, which in the film is, and this hat, by the way, for people watching the video, this is a hat from Tiana Taylor with the name of her character in the film, Perfidia Beverly Hills, which she gave us as a gift. She was one of the very generous, incredible people I got to meet there. I guess returning to your question, when I first read the script, it was, I experienced it as a very out there, very incredible Paul Thomas Anderson script that confronted a lot of the dystopic themes that, we have witnessed increasing as Americans for many years, not just months, but many years. In particular, a rise of sort of out of the closet white supremacy, so to speak. And in the months from reading the script to actually shooting the film, now to see it, what was at first sort of dystopic themes that resonated with some of the horrible things we're seeing, um, have really taken full form, in ways I never would have imagined, in many of the ways that you described, Paul. And even including some other things too, I guess, without getting too deep into the weeds of it. I remember in the past 6 weeks or so, seeing a headline, which I think didn't get more than one article, at least that I saw, of a group of people in somewhere in Texas, more or less assaulting a border patrol station, some sort of federal law enforcement facility, with an interest in liberating people imprisoned there, people without documents who'd been abducted. And I cite that as an example of basically armed conflict around these issues of nation and citizenship and stuff. And basically, with respect to that, with respect to what you're describing in Chicago and also Los Angeles in particular, nothing about it is fictional. It's really a horror film, in real life, which I think makes it sort of a more complicated challenge to digest some of what's in the film, in particular, um, some of the humor, some of the humorous depictions of um, the depravity of white supremacy and the insanity of it. There's sort of like a dark humor, basically white man's explorers club. A lot of the names have a lot of sort of dark humor imbued in them. So I think one challenge of the film is to um, appreciate the way in which it's not at all outlandish. It's, sort of clearly reflecting real world things, with Paul Thomas Anderson's very distinctive humorous flavor.
I think humor is very important, and there actually is a tradition of leavening movies and narratives about extremely serious topics with at least a little bit of humor. I mean, off the top of my head, Doctor Strangelove was about the possibility of blowing ourselves up in a nuclear
Right.
war. This was in, like, I guess the mid or early 1960s, but there was a crackpot zany aspect to that movie. And, I'm no psychologist, but it sort of strikes me as it's good to be able to laugh a little bit as you are confronting these atrocities that we're seeing. And in that sense, a movie like One Battle After Another is a good thing to see after watching on the news these horrendous developments. And by the way, I just want to say, in case any of our listeners and viewers are not familiar with your father's work, Jonathan Demme made some great, all-time great movies in his life: Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia, the uh, the remake of what was it, The Manchurian Candidate, and by the way, I'm the kind of person where if I see something and love it the first time, I'm a hard sell to love a remake of it. But in the case of the Manchurian Candidate, both movies were fabulous. I mean, the acting, Lawrence Harvey was in the first, Denzel Washington was in the second. So, but your father had an especially tough job to make that remake of the movie as good as the first movie.
Yeah, I'm sure he would appreciate what you're saying. I know a lot of people felt like, how could you touch a perfect film? So I know he'd appreciate that you like that film.
Yeah, no, I did like it, and actually, not to go too far off the topic, uh, over the years, remakes, reboots, some of them have been great. I mean, the rebooted Battlestar Galactica, if you're into science fiction, was much better than the original, which was basically almost like a cartoon. Not that cartoons are bad, but it had that level of profundity, not that
Right.
much in it. And most people think that the current Star Trek Strange New Worlds, although maybe it's not quite as good as the original Star Trek or Star Trek The Next Generation, is a pretty good successor to that. Let's talk about a more personal matter. How did it feel to be asked to be in this movie? And you mentioned you got a call out of the clear blue sky. You didn't even recognize the number. Did it scratch an itch that you had, especially as being your father's son, to be in the movies as an actor?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I guess just to start plain and simple, it was incredible. It was out of left field, and it was a dream to receive the invite. Um, it was also pretty miraculous timing because, my dad had uh invited me to be in some of his films in little minor roles, starting with Beloved. Well, shoot, actually, even with the intro scene of Philadelphia, actually, I'm a little child there, in the wonderful opening sequence. Then Beloved, uh, Rachel getting married, Ricky and the Flash, and there wasn't too much acting involved in many of those experiences, not really acting. And, you know, a month before I got the call from Paul Thomas Anderson, we had just completed production on the first fictional film which I'd written and directed called Mountain Lion, which mainly because of the Screen Actors Guild strike, um, there was a position that we didn't have anyone for anymore. uh, Bill Irwin was interested in it, but was unable to participate because of the strike. So I stepped into that role, and I basically had my first actual acting experience just a month before hearing from PTA about One Battle After Another. So it was really a delight and sort of serendipitous as well.
And did you know any of these actors before this, like Leo DiCaprio or Sean Penn?
No,
No.
no. I believe, I don't know to what degree, but I know my dad and Leonardo DiCaprio had crossed paths before, or at least communicated. I had never met him, even close to it, or anybody else. Met a lot of wonderful people, though. Regina Hall, Wood Harris, Tiana Taylor. Were some of the legends who were very, just very kind, very generous people. It was great to spend some time. And our whole little cadre called the French 75, it had a little bit more play in the script than it does in the final film. So, my wife and I got to be out there in Sacramento for about a month, spending some time with people, etc. It was a great time.
I just want to say about Sean Penn. Uh, my wife and I were and still are devoted fans of Phil Oakes. I don't know if you've ever come across his music. He was a folk singer in the 60s through the early 70s. Tragically, he took his own life. Otherwise, we'd all love to hear what his thoughts are on what's going on in the world today. In many ways, Phil Oakes was as good or even better in some ways than Bob Dylan
Wow.
in terms of writing and singing songs about what was going on in the world back then, the 1960s. And what Sean Penn has to do with Phil Oakes is, for years there's been talk about making a biopic about Phil Oakes,
Hmm.
and for a while Sean Penn, who when he was younger looked a lot like Phil Oakes, and he would have been perfect
I see.
for that biopic, but I think he's gotten a little too old for it. But he basically, I mean, a lot of people in the movie, he basically played a wild part in one battle after another. Do you know to what extent? And this, I guess, goes beyond just Sean Penn. It goes to everyone, and to Paul Thomas Anderson as well. Uh, to what extent did Paul Thomas Anderson tolerate or even invite the kind of ad-libbing that Marlon Brando was famous for, and other actors as well? Or is he the kind of director who like insists you go by the script?
Um, he's highly collaborative for starters. And I imagine there are probably some scenes where every letter is very important, and there are some scenes when, in this script at least, it was even in the script to ad lib. The basis of the conversation would be provided, and then at go time, people would kind of we needed to sort of seize the moment and pick our lines and our beats and get something in there. But yeah, he's deeply collaborative. It was a pretty incredible learning experience to see the extent to which he, the role of director, not as like controlling things so much as orchestrating the talents of everybody there.
Well, you could see there was incredible energy, in the story. I mean, the characters practically jumped out of the screen, and I said this in my review. I've never seen such an exciting car chase scene as in that you have three cars chasing each other. Each one has a different agenda. They're moving at lightning speed over incredibly hilly terrain.
Mhm.
I
Right. Yes, indeed.
it was a really a wonderful scene. Talk to us a little bit about that kid. I know you talked to Frank about it. What's happening with that? This is a movie that you were basically filming the movie. Is Ashley Dawson basically wrote and directed the movie? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, Ashley's debut as writer director. I helped out as producer, videographer, and editor as well. And yeah, back to the cue card, either for people watching or listening. Truth to Power is the name of the organization which Ashley and I co-founded, and yeah, we are working towards unity, using film and also education and community. And this is pretty incredible timing. The invite to get to participate in this conversation with you after where we met on Frank LeBono's, because we have an upcoming screening this Saturday of that kid at Pilgrim Baptist Church in Nyack at noon, which is a very special home court environment because it's Ashley's church, and in many ways the story is a act of prayer for her. So anybody who's been looking for an opportunity to see the film, this Saturday noon, Pilgrim Baptist Church in Nyack.
Well, good. I'm glad I asked that question, and I will put like information about how people can get to the movie in the show notes
Thank you. That'd
to
be great.
this podcast.
I'll
I'm not.
send you a flyer.
Yeah, send me a flyer. But I was going to ask anyway about the movie. Are there any plans to put the movie up at least on YouTube or even on one of the streaming services? I mean, believe it or not, among many things I do, I'm a science fiction writer. So some years ago, a guy by the name of Jay Kensinger made an incredibly low budget movie about one of my novelettes, The Chronology
Okay.
Protection Case,
Uh-huh.
and I was able to get that up on Amazon Prime, so it's still there.
Oh, great. I'd like to see it.
Oh, I'll send you the
Please do.
link to it. Look, it's Jake Hedger is not on the Paul Thomas Anderson level of movie making, but if you take into account that most of the movie was actually made like in 2002, it was almost like a college student movie. We put on a new ending in 2013, but if you keep in mind that it's a very, very primitive production, uh, including, by the way, in order to make the 2013 ending look like time had passed from the 2002 movie, Jay decided to cast the 2002 part of the movie in like a very primitive black and white, grainy quality. So it looks like you're looking at some kind of movie made like in 1935 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a slightly crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, we like elbow grease as well in filmmaking, so I look forward to seeing this film for sure.
All right, great, great. But so what I was going to ask you, are there any plans to get that kid up on Amazon, any other places where people can screen it rather than having to go to Nyack? Not that Nyack is not a wonderful place to go to, but
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's, basically people familiar with film festival circuits, etc. Oftentimes when you submit to festivals, they only accept if it is not available for public viewing already.
uh,
So it isn't published yet. And basically, Ashley and we have begun to present it at different festivals, a couple in Massachusetts, most recently one called the Lava Center Film Festival. Up next is the Kwanzaa Film Festival in Harlem, New York, which we're very much looking forward to. And yeah, basically looking to see what happens. I would say certainly on YouTube. And we're also, open and interested, not expecting, but open to distribution possibilities which could occur. Um, from our friends at another film festival in Massachusetts, we got a distribution agreement for Mountain Lion with a firm called Bayview Entertainment. So, depending on how that rolls out, maybe that kid would end up somewhere like that as well. And yeah, in the meantime, we're in addition to film festivals, we are booking public library engagements, which consist of both the screening and a discussion to follow. That's another benefit of the in-person works, like this Saturday, for instance. And for other people, either educators or people in different arts organizations or different, community interest groups, we're definitely, looking for community environments who want to see the film and use it as an opportunity to open up some good conversations.
good. Tell us a little bit about Mountain Lion. Did you write that as well as producing it and directing it?
Yes.
Okay. What's it about? I assume is it about literally a mountain lion or is that a metaphor?
Well, sort of both. There is a sort of literal mountain lion in the film, um, but it is played by a human being in a mountain lion outfit or costume. Incidentally, I am the person wearing the costume. So there are a couple different levels of metaphor versus reality. Um, it is a, sort of an intense and impressionistic family drama. Um, some of the most important or heaviest primary themes pertain to the importance of seriousness in prayer and also mindfulness in intimate relationships. And a lot of it is about sort of, in this sort of chaotic, very disconnected world. Part of the message is one of encouragement to try to take good care of our sacred energy and our interactions with one another.
Well, that's very important. So that sounds like a very worthwhile and interesting movie as well.
Thank you.
Uh, so how does it work, Jeff? Because I'm sure our viewers and listeners, or at least some of them, might be interested in this. Do you have an agent? So you mentioned that essentially for personal reasons, Paul Thomas Anderson called you out of the clear blue sky. He and your father had a close relationship. Um, are you actively trying to be in other movies? Do you have someone representing you out there, or I know you're doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, I don't have representation. I'm not actively seeking more opportunities. I am extremely I wholeheartedly welcome anything which should come my way. But I'm not really, or I'm not in any way actively pursuing an acting career. And I had a great experience, and God willing, would love to enjoy more of it in my life.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a great movie, and even though it was a small part, I remember your face from the movie. So
Oh, you were looking, you had your microscope out. I'm
listen,
happy you enjoyed the film.
yeah, I have to say, I always do this little routine at the end of my classes at Fordham. I I asked the students to rank which they put first, or actually first, second, and third. Three things: power, money, fame. And if you think about it, they do overlap. I mean, so in an evil way, Trump has all three, right? Someone like Barack Obama, probably the most important thing in his life was power, but he had plenty of fame from being president, still does, and has some money. So if you had to rank those three goals in your professional life, obviously this is not your personal life. Everybody wants to be happy, they want to be loved, and so on. So these are like professional goals. How would you rank yourself?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. Let's see. Golly, I guess as far as, well, I and we at Truth to Power are impact-based filmmakers. So in order to, render a positive impact, for me, the number one would be power in a simple way. To, yeah, basically enact the impact, the positive impact that we desire to see in the world and help contribute to. Um, After that, money, because everybody needs it, um, in the studio and outside of it as well. And finally, fame is not something that I'm seeking, and I guess if you do enough of the other stuff, it might follow.
All right, that's a good answer. It's a fascinating question, I think, because sometimes this even changes in the lifetime or over a period of time in a person's life. I mean, the thing about money is, always valuable, whatever you're doing. But unless you're like, I guess, some kind of financial person, it never can thrill you, on a very deep level in the way that power can, to do good things. That's a wonderful feeling, and I think fame also for the same reason. As people take what you say seriously, in fact that's a kind of fame as well. My guess is you might wind up moving fame into second place as you get up.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm open to it. Do you get
Yeah.
with your students, do you hear one of those terms back in the number one slot the most often?
So here's the story. So let's say I have a class of 20 students. Usually the least ranked first is fame. The exception being there could be like an actress or would-be actress in the class, or a musician, and they want someone who's interested in the music industry, or a would-be recording artist, and so on. So for
Right.
them it's usually fame, and then basically the class is pretty much split between power and money. And power for the reasons that you put power first, because they want to do good in the world. They would like to change or help change things for the better. Uh, uh, but sometimes they can see that money can do that as well. So I would say in a class of 20, maybe two or three would put fame first, and then it would be split 50-50 between the other two, power and money.
Interesting. That's a great question.
Yeah. Uh, so let's just wrap this up with what is, if you feel comfortable talking about it, the very next thing in terms of creating something that you expect to be doing. We've talked about promoting this and that, and promotion is extremely important. And by the way, as an author myself, I think promotion is part of the creative process. It has a bad name for it. If you write something, if you produce something, if you make something, your job isn't finished if you're the only person who knows about it. So you want to get it out to the public. So we've talked about that, but do you have something new in your head that you think you might be working on and doing, and you'd like to give people a preview of it?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the chance to say. We have a documentary in post-production called Our Shared Inheritance. And it is about the story of Truth to Power, of how Ashley and I come together and what we're doing here. And it's a film that I'm producing, like that kid, and which she is directing. And another part of the film is basically as a I guess, a fundraising tool to raise finances for our next fictional piece, which is called Slice of Heaven. And I imagine we'll try to shoot that summer 2027. It's not impossible it could be this summer, but it's highly unlikely. But yeah, that will be the next fictional strike.
All right, that sounds great. And well, actually, I said that was the last question, but I do have one final
Yeah.
question. Is there any chance, because I have no idea how these things work, that you will be in the group of people who will be in the seats during the Academy Awards, and you might not be able to run up on stage, but if one battle after another, wins, will you be able to stand up and cheer, or probably not?
No, I doubt. I can't imagine being on anybody's invite list for the Academy Awards. But
Okay. Well,
we'll see who cleans up. We'll see who
yeah.
gets it.
Yeah, well, look, these things are unpredictable, and
Yeah,
nobody cares what critics or reviewers say. They always vote for what they want to vote for.
I will say I'm more interested in uh, the Oscars this year than I normally am. Really, really interested to see how this film will be received.
No, and I agree with you completely. And I'm one of these people who are often furious about sometimes great movies are not even nominated, let alone win. And you know, you know probably better than I, because I don't really know much at all about the inside of the movie industry. But I imagine it's tough to even get nominated, and then to win. To some extent, nobody can ever predict it. But for whatever it's worth, my vote is for one battle after another. And one of the many reasons is our guest Brooklyn Demme has this minute role in the movie, but this is a good thing for you because I'm glad you have that little, imprint in the movie. It'll help you.
Yes, indeed. I'm right there with you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on to talk about it.
You're welcome. Take care.